Hello, welcome to another episode of the Creative-ish podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Mariana.
And I'm Kelly.
And in this episode, we're interviewing Jay Clouse. Jay is the host of Creative Elements, a podcast that we have been really loving lately. In this podcast, Jay mainly focuses on helping people become professional creators through interviewing professional creators. So he has people like Ali Abdal, Thomas Frank, Matt Diavella, Seth Godin, really big names in the industry, and he has made such great interviews with this podcast. So we highly suggest that you, after listening to this episode, go check him out. He has grown the podcast to over 1 million downloads. So, he's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And
super impressive.
Yeah, so that's Jay. He also has a membership and various other courses in the same topic of helping people become professional creators.
Yeah, in this episode, we actually talk a lot about being a creator and his life as a creator. And we talk about how Jay is able to stay consistent throughout all his mediums because he has a podcast, he has the newsletter, he has a blog. He publishes consistently on a lot of platforms. So we talk about that and how to be consistent because truly, if you are a creator and you are consistent for long periods of time, it's like you're almost guaranteed to succeed in a way. We also talk with Jay about how to develop your message as a creator and even as a business owner. We talk about building a community, growing a community. We talk about digital products and much, much more. So we hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, Jay. Thank you so much for coming on the show. So we actually connected with Jay through a YouTube comment in his podcast channel. His podcast, Creative Elements, has become one of our favorite podcasts. Jay, you do such a good job interviewing high-level creators. And honestly, it's so impressive, the quality of content creators you've had on your show. And through your newsletter and your Twitter, we've learned so much from you, and the dedication you put into creating quality content is astounding.
Thank you.
So first off, we would love to hear about something recent that's going on in your life right now. What was the last thing that happened or that's in the process of happening in your business, life, or creative project that makes you feel like, wow, I'm so freaking cool, and please don't be humble?
Well, I don't know if there's like just one thing. I mean, like the biggest thing still on my mind is moving to YouTube because Creative Elements, the podcast, it's existed since March of 2020. We launched it like right when the pandemic was just breaking and people were like, what's happening? So it was really kind of weird timing. But the audio show was already really successful when we decided to go onto YouTube. And that was a lot of work to get that audio only show into like a video first medium and do it with high quality because that's really important to me. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it really, really well. And so we spent like 3 months getting the first episode ready to go.
Wow.
Now we're producing an episode a week, but that's still pretty new. And it's really exciting because, now we have 1,500 subscribers on YouTube, and that's for the most part new audience, people that didn't know the show existed before, and that was the point. That's why we wanted to do it in the first place, and that's been really, really great. And I'm still on a high from that because you guys, is this a video show? We're using Riverside, so I'm guessing so, right? Yeah. Have you ever done like an audio only show?
No, actually not. We started with video and audio from the beginning.
That's the way to do it because when you're doing an audio show, you just have no idea who's listening. You have no idea. Like to connect with you guys because you left a comment on YouTube. Like it's because I saw that you were listening. I'm like, that's really cool. I'm not so busy that I don't still, when people comment, like creep around and look at their channels and see what they're doing and see like what their life is like, where they're coming from. And it's been so awesome to connect with really legitimate people who are doing really cool creative work because now I can actually see who those people are. So that's been my favorite thing in the last few months.
Yeah, and we also decided to start the video component, right off the bat, even if the video wasn't the best quality, because we honestly enjoy watching video podcasts so much, and it's what we enjoy the most. And I think Gen Z too can agree with us because I think Spotify did like a statistic and they do love video podcasts, and it's so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely seeing that too. Like it's opened me up to a slightly younger audience. I mean, the one thing podcasts did give me is just demographic information. So historically, most of my stuff is seen most by like mid 20s to mid 30s people. And moving to YouTube, like the average age has gone down noticeably, which I think is cool because, I'm in this for the long game. Like I want people to be like entering this world and find me pretty quickly so that we can grow together over time. So that's been a real benefit.
Yeah, and hats off to you because the YouTube video itself is so high quality, and the edits. I heard you mention that you wanted to feel like you're watching a TikTok video on YouTube.
That's the grand vision, and we get a little bit better each week. But yeah, I mean, to do YouTube really well, you need to do it like in person. And I can't do that. We couldn't have this call if we had to meet up in person to do it. So like doing things remotely really opens up a lot of possibilities. But then again, I wanted to make sure that the remote video version of my show wasn't just like a side-by-side Zoom recording. And I found an editor. His name is Connor. He's awesome. He's doing incredible work. And each week we get a little bit better. We add little sprinkles of fun on top of it. And now that's like part of a template that's saved, so we can just improve from there. But we want a 60-minute interview to feel as visually engaging as watching TikTok, which is a difficult thing to do, obviously. So it's going to take a while to get there.
No, but I think you're pulling it off. The attention span, like we'd never get bored watching your episodes. So
it's so great.
Good job.
It's so great to hear.
So now we want to talk a little bit about, you were a freelancer for a number of years. You used to be a copywriter and a website designer like us. But now you primarily focus on creators, helping creators and other freelancers. And, right now we're at a point where our business is primarily service-based and our primary source of revenue is working with clients. But I feel like we're kind of like at a turning point. We want to explore new things, new avenues of possibility. Like, for example, this podcast, it's something that we really enjoy and see like a bright future with it. So I'm curious, like, what was that turning point for you from being a freelancer to being a creator? And like, how did that happen for you? And why did you decide to follow this path instead?
To be honest, all of it happened pretty naturally and by accident. Like the terminology we're using here didn't really exist just 5 years ago when I was doing this. I didn't know freelancing was a thing when I started freelancing. I was just like, I don't have a job and I need to make money, so I'm going to find people who will pay me money to do things. And then I learned, that's called freelancing. That's cool. Then I had an opportunity to build an online course with LinkedIn. They have this entire learning platform, and they're basically publishing deals. Like they would pay me in advance, and then I earn royalties based on how the course performs. But that introduced me to online courses, and I thought, this is cool. I feel like I could do this by myself. And so I went down that path and built that. And when you make, your first dollar through a product that you don't have to like then fulfill, like they purchased this, they got access to it now. I don't have to do anything. I just suddenly got money in my bank account. It's pretty addicting. It's like, wow, can life just be this? can that be all the time? And so I wanted to work in that direction, but that doesn't happen overnight, right? And so I've always thought of, at least until the creator business was like fully supporting me, I thought I have basically like two proportions. I actually thought of it as like a bar graph where it's like, okay, right now there are two parts of my business. I have the services side of my business, which is making 100% of my revenue, and I have the creator part of my business, which is currently making 0% of my revenue. I want to slowly change the proportion so that we're like at 50-50 and then even beyond that where the creator revenue is everything. And that's just the path that I went down. I had to make sure that I was still doing enough service-based work that I could cover my needs. And with that focus, all the creator revenue that came in just felt like, the cherry on top. It was like, this is just great. And eventually that grew enough with just like the size and scale of my audience that it remove the need for services, and I would slowly start like ending projects with clients and not seeking out new clients, and it very naturally evolved. But a lot of people will kind of just jump off the ledge and say, I just want to be a creator, and the only way I'm going to do that is I spend all my time on it, so I'm going to give up my clients. And most of them crash real hard because like even if you put all of your time into this, it's still going to take time for people to build trust with you. Even if you're putting 40 hours a week into it, you're not putting 40 hours into building trust with individuals. Like you have to show up in their lives for weeks, months, years for them to really trust you and want to work with you, hire you, buy things from you, and you can't just turn that on. So I encourage people to really stick with whatever is paying the bills right now, whether that's a 9 to 5 or whether that's your own freelance work. Keep the financial pressure off of your creator business until that thing is naturally supporting you anyway, and then think about letting go of the other part.
That's great advice. So now I want to dive into your life as a creator. So as you said, it's gonna take time to become a creator, and I recently read a thread you did on Twitter, and by the way, you inspired me to get on Twitter. I wasn't even on Twitter. And it was a thread that you did that, as you said, most creators fail, and they fail quickly because they can't be consistent. And so if you're consistent, you're almost guaranteed to succeed. And I love that thread. And you even put like some images, like a drawing. And I was like, oh, you just need to be consistent. So I feel like you are constantly publishing on Twitter, and you're so consistent with the newsletter, the podcast, the blog. So I would love to know, what does a week in your life look like creating all of this content, and your top tips for staying consistent?
I'm really big on what I call theming your days throughout the week. So my theme on Monday and Friday is deep work. Like, there's nothing on my calendar. It's just creative time. And I manage that by not letting people schedule time with me on those days. My themes for Tuesdays and Thursdays are basically calls and relationship building. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday afternoons, I will allow podcast interviews, usually for my own show. So as a result, all my mornings are always open. Every day of the week, the morning is open. And on Monday and Friday, even the afternoon is totally open. So that's when I do most of my creative work. Like tomorrow, I'm going to be recording a bunch of videos for this new course that I'm putting together. Typically on Fridays, I'm also writing my newsletter. A lot of the actual podcast work now is done by my editor, which is great because he does a great job, better than I've ever done it. All I have to do is make sure I get him the raw materials, which is the interview video and the audio, and then scripting and recording my voiceover at the beginning of the episode. And that takes me 10 to 20 minutes to do. The recording. The scripting takes about a half hour, so it's an extra hour. Yeah, and I have a goal of every day posting at least once on Twitter, but usually twice. Same with LinkedIn. I don't have that goal for TikTok or Instagram yet because I'm just so bad at it. And really, I would encourage people, social media, YouTube, these are discovery platforms. They're platforms where people will naturally find your work that don't already know who you are. There's a mechanism for organic growth and reach. I recommend that people focus on one discovery platform predominantly and just really do that well. I wish I would have started with that advice and just said, I'm only going to do Twitter for the next few years and just crush Twitter. Because once you do one really well, it's a lot easier to move that large audience over to another platform. Now, if you're doing TikTok, there's no reason not to also do Reels, YouTube Shorts. It's all kind of the same stuff. So to me, it's really do you want to do writing or do you want to do short form vertical video? It's really hard to do both and do them well and see success. So you probably want to pick one or the other. And I lean on the writing side of things for the most part. So most days I will publish 1 to 2 posts on Twitter and LinkedIn. I write on Mondays and or Fridays. And then, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Wednesdays, a lot of calls with the community, with new friends, with interviews, things like that.
And do you ever experience creative blocks while you're creating, or periods of slumps when it feels really hard, you're struggling to get this out? And if so, how do you overcome that? Or do you have tools that you use to get yourself out of that?
Honestly, it's never gotten easy. You know what I mean? People want to believe that you can create creative habits and then just magic happens, but it always kind of sucks. It always is hard, there's always an element of willpower, of getting in your own head, getting in the way, and that is why deadlines are just so powerful. But you have to build a respect for deadlines for yourself. That's why it's so important in the beginning to say, I'm going to publish this thing on this frequency for the next 2 years. That's my only goal, is I want to publish one video on YouTube a week for the next 2 years. And you let the schedule drive the work. And when you let the schedule drive the work, sometimes you have to compromise on quality, because it's I have to post this tomorrow and I haven't gotten an early enough start on it. So I guess tomorrow's video is going to kind of suck, but I'm going to publish. That's what you have to do in the beginning. It's like you have to train yourself that when you say, I'm going to ship a thing, that you can trust yourself in doing it. Because otherwise, if you don't build that muscle, when you do feel stuck, when you do feel creatively blocked, you will allow yourself to just not do it. And then you never publish, and then months pass, years pass, this stuff compounds. And if you let a lot of time pass without continuing to get out there, you lose momentum, or you never build momentum, and it just won't work out. So it's really important to power through those times when you feel blocked.
Yeah, and especially when you're just starting out. Like we've recorded podcast episodes that we were like, that's a little embarrassing, you know? But we still posted them because it's like our audience is still small. Like it's not like we're gonna have thousands of people bashing us on the internet or judging us. So when you're just starting out, feel free to like put crappy content out there and you'll evolve as you go. But you just have to like expose yourself to feeling that uncomfortable moment in the beginning.
You know what's fucking awesome is people lately have been pulling up these videos from Mr. Beast that he recorded like 5 years ago. That was like a note to myself in 5 years. And like, they suck. They're bad videos, but he called his shot. That's what's so cool about it. Like you can look back and be like, this video sucks and this guy looks like a twerp, but like it doesn't matter because that's where he is now. Like it actually is empowering to people to look at your old stuff to see how far you have come. It's awesome. I did an episode of the podcast, might have been even a year ago now, where as part of it, I wanted to include a clip from Marcus Brownlee's first video when he was like 12. It's insane. It's so inspiring. Same with Joe Rogan, his first video. It was terrible. It had like weird like video effects of like snow coming down. The first 5 minutes is him saying, are we live? Is this thing on? Is this working? It's awesome to see that journey for people. So don't be afraid that like the stuff today isn't very good. Someday that will actually be a really powerful part of your story.
It's also a great reminder because sometimes we don't respect those deadlines and we're like, oh, let's just push it back a week. And so it's great to see you like telling us actually respect those timelines and do the things that you're supposed to do.
Low key, like I think that's the biggest aspect to whatever degree of success I have. Like the biggest reason I am where I am, which isn't as big as other people, but the biggest reason that I'm here is because I have just always published when I said it's going to. And it's a respect for deadlines that I built studying journalism. And the only way to build that respect for yourself is to just like, you have to prove to yourself that your word is true to you, because it's really easy to negotiate out of something when no one will know. But like, if you just don't make that an option, if you say, no, this is what I said I was going to do and I'm going to do it, that also like overflows to other areas of your life in a really positive way. So it's really important to build that internal trust and accountability and motivation to not allow yourself to negotiate out of timelines.
For sure. And we were listening to the podcast episode you did with Danny Miranda, and I would love if you could talk more about those timeless principles into becoming a creator and dive deeper into the moat method that you mentioned in the episode.
Okay. Sure. Okay, so in the business world, there is this idea of the most successful businesses have built what they call a moat. And the idea is it actually pulls from like ancient medieval imagery. Like you have a castle, you dig a moat, which is like a big trench, and you fill it with water and you put it around the castle, and that is what protects the castle from attacks. And so in business, they say your moat is the thing that allows you to like ward off competition and protect the value of the business that you have built. So I was thinking like, how do creators build moats around their business? More people joining Instagram and TikTok and YouTube all the time. Like, what is your creator moat? And it just so happened that the things that I came up with actually fit within the acronym moat. So M is messaging, O is online presence, A is authority, T is trust. I'll dive into each of those. M, message. It's message, not messaging. Message. A lot of people talk about your niche, right? Like, who do you serve? What do you do for them? And I think that's a good framework. It's just kind of incomplete. Because to me, multiple people can exist in the same niche and build viable audiences and businesses. The difference between those people within a niche is their message, their viewpoint, their lens on the world, a thing that they believe is different from other people. So you have to dig into who is Kelly, who is Ariana, like what do you believe about the world that's fundamentally different about other people, so that this show will attract an audience who say, yeah, I agree with their perspective. I like the way they look at things. I like the way that they package their perspective. That is message. You need to know, who am I for? Like, what am I trying to teach people? What am I trying to share with people? So my message is, I believe that being a creator is just as much science as it is art. Like, there's a lot you can learn from data and make decisions based on data. And there's a lot of things that people have already figured out that you can take and run with. And then you put your creativity on top of that. A lot of people lean into like the creative and artsy parts of being a creator. I think it's a lot of a science. So that's message. O is online presence. I don't think your audience needs to hear this, but like some people that I talk to, they just don't even really exist online. Maybe they have a website, maybe, but they're probably not that active on social media. They're not very well seen. If you're going to do this full time, like, you need to have not only an online presence that exists, but is reinforcing your message and really putting you up as somebody who should be paid attention to. So there's like a question of alignment there in terms of, okay, my message, the things that I uniquely believe, do people see that on my website? Does that come through in the way that I show up on social media and the videos that I make? That's the O. A is authority, which is basically, why should I trust you? Why are you somebody that is the person that's spreading this message? Why not listen to this person over here? Not only do you need to have authority, but you need to, build that credibility with people who are starting to pay attention. Like, okay, I just found your website. I heard about you. Why should I subscribe? Or why should I click play on your YouTube video? It's the little marks that you see of people saying, like, I was featured in this, or as seen on TV, or, that's kind of the authority building. Or people who put in their bio, like, hey, I built a business from A to B, and now I'm showing people how to do the same. And then T is trust. I think that creators need to have a platform that builds trust with their audience. I mentioned discovery platforms a second ago, like social media and YouTube. Trust, to me, needs to be built through a platform that no algorithm, no third-party company can get in the way. I think you need to choose email, audio podcasting, a community, or SMS. And you need to build that trust over time through constant communication in one of those platforms. That was a long answer, so we can go into any one of those that you guys want, but I wanted to cover the framework.
No, yeah, it's brilliant, and they build on top of each other, and like the messaging is like your foundation, and then with your messaging you create an online presence. Once you grow your online presence, that will give you authority, and then authority will make people trust you. But like, it all starts with the messaging, and I feel like that is the thing that most people get stuck on, or they feel like,
totally,
I don't have a unique point of view. Like, it's so hard for me to find something different in an industry that feels so saturated. So like, how did you find your unique point of view, or like, what were the order of events for you to feel confident and like, I want to be a thought leader on this?
Honestly, it's changed a lot over time. And the reason that I can have this current message of like, yeah, there's actually a lot more science to this than art, is because I have the authority of having interviewed like 120 of some of the best creators on the planet. Like the tough love answer to this is, you have to earn some unique insight that you can bring to the table, or why would somebody pay attention to you? And it doesn't mean that you have to like spend years in a job to earn that insight. Maybe you spent a little bit of time doing something and you like really had this aha moment that other people just couldn't seem to see, and now you talk about that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a lot of time doing a specific thing, but you do have to earn that insight through experience. And a lot of my journey, as I earned insight through different experiences, I would change my perspective. For a while, I thought I was just going to help people become better freelancers, because my authority was, I built a freelancing business that was more than 6 figures. Cool. That could be my message. Then I realized, well, the people I'm attracting are people who want to be freelancers, but that's not really who I want to work with, and like the businesses I want to help people build. So I had to change my message. It evolves over time. And you start to notice as you do this creator thing, you publish stuff, more people will come to you and say, I want to talk to you about this because it seems like you have a good handle on this. And you need to tune into that. Like, why are people coming to you? They seem to think you have some insight that they want to learn. Pay attention to that. That could be your message. As you're having conversations with them and as you say things, you answer their questions and you tell them how you see the world, when their eyes light up or when they're like, I hadn't thought about that. Pay attention to that. That's a unique insight to you that might be something you wrap into your message. So it's always evolving. I think most people change this over time, whether they refine it or whether they go in a different direction, and that's okay. You just need to find those things that Wes Cow would say are at the intersection of surprising and true. Things that people hadn't thought about, but there's reason to believe that it's true.
It's kind of like connecting two things that haven't been connected before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what stands out to people. If your message is something that people universally agree with, like the sky is blue, no one's going to pay attention. No one cares. Like, yeah, Kelly's out here telling everybody that the sky is blue. We all know. Like, why? we don't need to hear from that. But if you're like, hey, actually, all you people, another part of my message I've been playing with, I want to help creators build businesses that are not dependent on algorithms at all. Like there's just a much better way. As I get more into the world of video and YouTube and social media, I see so many creators who are just like dependent on the platform. And that's never been me. All of my revenue has been through like my own platforms, my own products. And I didn't realize that was something that was so new to a lot of people still. So I'm thinking more and more about like, yeah, I want to help creators build platform independent businesses or platform resilient businesses. And I just test that in little ways. I share that here with you on the podcast to see if your guys' eyes light up, if you start nodding, okay, there's some resonance here. This is new to them. And maybe that's the direction that I go in soon. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a great idea, honestly. Like having your creator business not be platform dependent. Like, that's amazing. You also mentioned in the episode, you mentioned different steps. So the step number 1 was design your mode, and we already dove into that a bit. And the step 2, you said to dig your moat, and you talked about discover, income, and growth. And so my question to you would be, what has been something you've done that has brought you the most success into getting discovered and as a creator bringing people into your network?
In the world of discovery, you can either really lean into the discovery platforms like YouTube, like social media, and build an audience there yourself, or you can find people who have already built their own audiences and try to get in front of them. Like, it's part of my strategy for discovery to get on other people's podcasts who have audiences that are different than is already in mine, So being here is part of my discovery effort. Instead of just me saying, I'm going to try to do TikTok so well that the people who follow the Creative-ish podcast would follow me, I'm going to say, I'm just going to go on the Creative-ish podcast. Like that's one viable strategy. And it's a lot of things like that. Like, yes, I'm trying to post twice a day on Twitter and LinkedIn because that gets me in front of new people every single day. Same with posting to YouTube once a week. But I also want to do things that put me in front of other audiences that already exist so that I can basically audition for that group of people and say, do you jive with what I'm saying? Like, are we vibing? And if so, come over here and this is where you can follow me for more. Some people, their discovery strategy is just ranking highly on YouTube, but also Google. They want to get a blog post or an article or a page on their website that ranks at the top of Google for some search. Also super valuable because Google's constantly pushing people in different directions. And if you can be where they're pushing people, amazing. You can like really grow quickly that way. Whatever game you want to play, you just got to learn the rules of the game and, get good at it. And I encourage people to play as few of games as possible because if you're not trying to learn a bunch of different things, you can get really good at one thing. And being really good at one thing is usually a better result than being kind of good at a bunch of things.
And back to the question about how have you been able to create such a fascinating network. I know that you mentioned that a lot of your guests are also cold pitches, and that was really surprising to me as well. So could you tell us a little bit more about that? And how can you cold pitch yourself to also connect with other people and maybe even as a freelancer?
Yeah, man, most of the connections I've made have been a result of me reaching out. Because if you're just getting started, somebody who's really successful that you look up to, odds are they don't know you exist. And it's not anything against you. It's just like there are 7 billion people on the planet. Why would they know that you exist if you're not, of a similar acclaim and like fame as they are? Of course they don't know you exist. So how are they going to know that you exist? You've got to reach out to them. You got to do the work. What you have to realize when you do outreach, when you do cold pitches to come on your show or get on a call or take a look at your resume, whatever it is, these people are very busy. They have a high demand for their time, and they also recognize the value of their time. The biggest mistake I see with cold pitches when people reach out to me is they don't understand that my time is high value, that I understand the value of my time, and they almost make it seem like I owe them something. And of course, I don't owe them anything. So when I pitch somebody, a couple of rules that I follow. I want that pitch to be very direct and very short because they won't take the time to read something long. They especially won't take the time to like read and digest something long. So if they are going to read what you say, you need it to be short and direct because that also says, I understand your time is valuable, your attention is valuable, and I'm going to make this as easy for you to make a yes or no decision as possible. I always give them an out. I say, no pressure or expectation. Thank you for the consideration. And when I ask them if they want to do a call or an interview, I will give them a huge time frame. I'll say like, do you have time for a 60-minute interview sometime in the next few months? A lot of people will write great cold emails and then end with, do you have time this week for a call? Hell no, I don't have time this week for a call. Any time that I have this week, I am protecting with my life. I don't want anything else on my plate this week. Next week too, actually. I don't have time next week either. So like if you frame it as, do you have 60 minutes in the next few months? It's much more like, of course I do. Like, yeah, a month from now, my schedule is completely open right now. Let's schedule something. So that's the strategy. And you want to be like complimentary. You need to be self-aware that this is essentially a favor. You don't need to say like, hey, I know this is a favor, but it should come through in your writing that like you don't expect anything from this person because they don't owe you anything. And you appreciate their consideration. You need to say why you're reaching out to them, be kind of complimentary about their work, but then be very specific about what is the ask here. Would you be open for a 60-minute remote interview in the next few months? So it makes it a lot easier to say yes to.
We recently discovered the power of cold pitching. It hadn't even crossed our minds. And then we had a coach and she told us like, just pitch yourselves. And we were like,
oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And here's the thing. Like if you get good at cold pitching for anything, whether it's like, hey, come on our show or let me be on your show, that is just sales. Sales is the most common, useful skill on the planet. Like if you're good at sales in one area of your life, you can be good at sales in any area of your life. And there's just no more valuable skill than being good at sales. Because like inherent in sales is it's storytelling, it's empathy, it's confidence. Like there's so many parts of being a good seller that are just so useful. I wish I could go back in time and force my younger self to like work a summer in a basic sales job, like even a hard one where it's like, okay, you're gonna go door to door and try to sell like encyclopedias. Something that sounds terrible. That would teach you just so much, and it would set you up for success in like anything that you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we have a very good head start in that because we actually started a business when we were 17, like
That's
together
amazing.
in high school. And so we had that business, we grew it. It was like a soap business. And then we went into like creative work because we graduated from marketing. And so we already have like that background and it's like kind of an authority, but we're so young still. So it's amazing when you get like a head start in that and you start learning sales and all those skills.
Yeah, and like the authority part that you just brought up, the part of the framework, you don't have to have authority for everyone on the planet. Like my authority is actually not very authoritative to a Mr. Beast. That doesn't matter. Mr. Beast is not my customer. You need to be an authority for the people who want to get to the point that you're at, who want to, have the same level of success that you have, but they're not there yet. If you think about like a spectrum, you are at some point in the spectrum. There are people who are beyond you on that same spectrum. Those aren't your customers. It's the people who have not gotten to the same point of the spectrum that you are. That's who you need to be an authority to. And by virtue of being further ahead, that makes you an authority. You just have to translate that for them to help them understand this is where you are. Like you have to advocate for yourself a little bit and be willing to show some of the results and success that you've had so people understand, oh yeah, this person's a few steps ahead of me. They've gone through exactly what I'm going through right now, and they've come out the other side. They seem like someone I can learn from.
I want to switch gears a little bit. So you have a variety of digital products, and you launched your membership this year, The Lab, which looks amazing, by the way. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
And you're constantly talking about how it has become your favorite place on the internet at the moment. So I want to get your thoughts on what are your top tips on nurturing a community and growing a community?
Oh man, I could spend like a whole hour talking about just this point. So a community, any product or experience that you offer needs to exist to solve some problem for some person. And I know that sounds basic, but like that is the most missed point of this whole thing is people won't think about what is the problem that this solves and for who. Because if you don't specify that, people won't know why they should join, or if they just trust you implicitly and they join without knowing that, they're going to make their own assumptions. So you need to make clear like who should join this and what should you expect to get out of it when you join. And also, this thing that I'm promising you that you're going to get out of this experience, how do you actually get that? So for me, the journey that I'm trying to promise through the lab is to say, hey, you are trying to be a professional creator where this is like your full-time thing. That's going to take some time. There's going to be a lot of changes in the landscape. And in this space, I'm going to help you accelerate that journey. And you're also going to get to learn from the experiments other people are learning, not even just my experiments. So I can promise that. And people can say, that sounds great. I want that. But I also need to share with them, how do you actually get that value? So for me, it's what I call these shared focus sprints. Like, hey, all of us right now, we have a shared focus of building an online course. So for the next 45 days, I'm going to share with you how I'm building my course. I'm going to give you exactly the steps that I'm taking. I'm going to give you templates to do it. And we're going to work through this at the same time. That is the main way you can engage with the value I am promising in this community. And if you just do those things, like making clear how you're going to get, or like make clear what you're going to get out of this, then how you get it out of this, and then iterate the process so that people actually get that, you're going to be good. That's all you really need to do. There's all kinds of like small things you can do on top of that to make sure that people are participating and getting value out of it and enjoying it. But at its core, it's like, what am I going to get out of this? How do I ensure that I can get that out of this? And then making that distance like as short as possible.
And to dive deeper a little bit on digital products, because we actually started our own digital product shop this year. We are now selling website templates.
Woo! I love that.
Yeah. Yes. So what advice do you have for someone that is starting a digital product shop from the ground up? Like, what do you think it takes to stand out and make it profitable?
Well, it depends on your strategy for selling this thing. Like if your strategy is, I'm going to build an audience and then I'm going to build a product that will serve that audience and I'm going to sell to that audience, it's fairly straightforward. The game is like making sure that the thing you make is something that the people in your audience want, and then making sure that when you go to sell it, it's very clear what the value of this thing is. The game basically becomes make the asset, build the audience. You know, if you want to build digital products and sell them without building your own audience, that becomes a lot harder, because then you need to rely on some sort of third party. And that might be a platform like Udemy or something, or it might be like a partner where you're saying, I actually just want other people to sell this for me. Way harder. My advice is to think really long term and say, I'm building assets. I'm building my own audience, and I'm also building digital assets that the person I'm attracting would need help with. And it can be really that simple. You just need to make sure that what you're making is something people actually want. Something I do recommend to a lot of people in this position is, before you build the whole thing, make sure people want it, and not just saying, yeah, I want that, but like actually collect payment before you build the thing. So right now I'm building a course called Build a Beloved Membership. It's a course on how to build a membership community like the lab. And before I made anything, I pre-sold it. And I said, hey, listen, this course is available for 25% off. It's the best price you'll ever get for this course. You can have it at that price for the next 2 weeks. Here's the payment page, and here's where you can learn more. All I did was build the sales page, show them the curriculum, give them some incentive to purchase now instead of waiting until it was done. And then I could see, like, do people actually want this? Because if people want this, they're going to buy it on pre-sale because they're going to save money. If people hadn't have bought, I would just not make the course. And I didn't spend all the time in doing the thing. Luckily, people did buy, so now I'm producing it. And then when it's fully done, it might be an even easier pitch because it's like you can have access to this immediately. Like you click here, you swipe your credit card, and you can be going through this course now. But, you know, I had a pretty good feeling that this was something that people in my audience wanted. Then I actually tested that by asking them to give me money for it before it existed. And now there was no risk in actually making the thing because my time and effort to make it have already been compensated.
And I'm curious, like, what was your messaging for selling something to someone where they're not going to receive it, like, in the moment?
Well, on the actual, like, purchase pages, it said pre-sale pricing. Course will be delivered by November 1st. And I had that in like my email communication as well to say, hey, I'm making this course. It'll be done by November 1st. Here's where you can buy it. It's currently on pre-sale pricing. Then when they actually purchase and they're inside of the course, all the lessons also say this course will be finished on November 1st. So all along the way, like I basically showed them like, you can purchase this now. It will not be done until November 1st. And I think that is important. Like you don't want to pre-sale something and not make that clear before they buy. You want to make sure that it is clear before they buy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jay. So now we want to do a lightning round of questions.
Okay.
So these are fast questions. You can keep it brief or if you want to expand a little bit. But yeah. So number one, what is something that you would tell your 22-year-old self?
I undervalued this like earned insight I was talking about. The more time you're willing to spend learning the existing world of something, the better off you're going to be. So I wish I could go back and tell my 22-year-old self, like, hey, you want to be in this creator space. Why don't you just go work for one of the biggest creators in the space and like really see the ins and outs of their business, get the benefit of the 10 years that they have had in this business. And then you can step away from that with like such a head start over other people, because not only do you have your own experience, but you just got a download of like 10 years of experience from this person. Apprenticeships is what this used to be called. I don't know if people talk about that in education today, but like going and learning directly from someone who's doing the thing that you want to do and spending a lot of time doing that is the best way to accelerate your unique insight, in my opinion.
I love that. When the pandemic started, we were still in college. We were studying marketing and we were like sponges, and we were like and we purchased our first ever course, and it was like we unlocked a whole different world, and it was like, oh my God. And then we just kept buying courses, and it was just like our growth like was fast tracked because it was like,
for sure,
how do people buy more courses? And so anyway, this is actually our next question. So what has been the best course you've ever bought?
I would say the best like dollar per dollar investment I ever made was the marketing seminar by Seth Godin. Is that one of the courses you guys took?
No. We've taken a lot, but one of the best was the Copy Cure by Marie Forleo, and we've taken like some that are like design specific.
Oh, we did Rand Siegel's. We took his bundle of all his courses, and yeah, we did also just few designer niche courses.
Yeah. I mean, Seth Godin's been doing this for like 40 years, and there's almost a Seth Godin cult. People just like love this guy so much. But that course of his in particular, it felt like he truly was able to bottle 40 years of cutting edge marketing and just like give it to you. And it was such a step change in my understanding of marketing. And it was like pretty cheap, relatively speaking. So that felt like an incredible investment.
I'm curious, what was your biggest takeaway from that course?
He did a lot of talking about positioning and messaging. I just hadn't thought about how powerful words were, to be honest. Like the way you describe who your thing is for, and you do it in a way that's not about like demographics. It's like, it's more about, he calls them psychographics, the way people self-identify, the way they see themselves in the world, the way you compare your thing to other things that exist in the marketplace, that yours is the obvious right choice. I think I learned a lot about like copywriting from that course, because really that's the way that you take your concept of marketing and translate that to people.
Yeah. When we learned copywriting, it was also like a switch. We were like now that you have these tools, it's like so much easier to do the selling and the sales that you were mentioning earlier, because it's like, how can I sell the transformation instead of just outlining deliverables?
Yeah. And here's the next step that you guys are going to find as you continue your journey and as you evolve. Like, you're in the phase right now where you're learning a ton of incredible frameworks, most likely, like ways of thinking about things, ways of describing things. And the best part about learning frameworks is once you know them, you can actually just like change them. Because when you're strictly following frameworks, it feels like a framework. And the fun part is knowing when to change the rules to be more yourselves to your audience. And it doesn't feel so much like, oh, they're working through this specific framework of like problem, agitate, solution, or they're like, they're walking me through feeling the pain of this thing. Like, you can still understand that framework and want that result, but do it in a completely different way, your own way. And that's the fun part. That's when, like, okay, the point of taking all these courses and doing all this learning is that I know the rules of the game so that I can bend them a little bit. I can get to the edge and do things in my own way. That's the real fun, and that's where I think people really stand out, and why I hope a lot of my work stands out is I don't follow frameworks really anymore, but I know them, and I know like aspects of them that I want to lean into. I just change it to my own flavor.
No, yeah, that's smart. That's very smart. A tool that makes your life easier.
Notion.
Yes.
Everything I do
We
is in
love
Notion.
Notion.
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly making just like pages in. I have a database called Notebook, and then I have like different types of pages in the notebook that I can do things on. But mostly I sit on my homepage. It's called Today, and it has like my task list there, and I can see like, oh shit, I still have to send an interview request today, or I have to pay myself today. It's really nice because I don't have to like remember things. Everything is just here.
We're Notion girlies. We just love it. We've literally mentioned Notion almost every episode of this podcast
Nice.
since it started.
All right, so I'm on brand.
Yeah. So this could be about anything. What are you most excited about for the next upcoming months, maybe the next year?
I'm excited about being done with this course because making a course is so much work. I'm also excited about, I have a vacation planned with my wife at the end of November after Thanksgiving, and we don't get enough like just relaxed time to each other. I'm excited, probably the next year or so I'll become a dad. That isn't a thing that, there's no developed or developing human yet. This isn't a pregnancy announcement, but I know that's like in our near future, and that's really exciting to me too.
Aww. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Jay. Is there anything else that you want to share, that you want to plug?
No, if you're watching this or listening to this and you enjoy podcasts, just check out Creative Elements. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, we highly recommend it.
Well, thank you for coming on, Jay.
Thanks, guys.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. If you did enjoy it, consider sending it to a friend so that they can also get some value from this conversation.
Yeah, you can also share this episode to your Instagram story or wherever you'd like, honestly. And yeah, if you're feeling extra nice, please leave us a rating on Spotify or a review on Apple Podcasts. It doesn't cost anything and it makes us really happy.
It really makes our day to see that people are actually listening to a podcast and you guys are enjoying it. So don't leave that in your heart. Share it with us.
Yeah, and we've actually received some really nice messages lately. And it has surprised us. When we have to give you guys a life update, and we'll give you that on the next week's episode when we have a solo episode.
Yeah, because we've done 2 interviews in a row. So we have so much to update you guys on. I feel like we haven't talked in so long. So yeah, stay tuned for next week's episode, which will be a more laid back conversation with us. And yeah, we hope you guys have a great week ahead, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.